Tonight's special guest is John Reynolds. John has a new book called Writing Your First Novel. Many baby boomers hear themselves saying, I could write a book about that. Well, now, no excuses. Start writing and be watching tonight for a chance to win John's first novel, Uncommon Enemy. We welcome John Reynolds as our special guest on The Beat Goes On. Big welcome to John Reynolds. That's a very, very important name, isn't it? Dr. John Reynolds.
Well, why quibble?
Well, no use to you if you've broken your arm or anything.
Where would that come from, the doctor? What did you have to do to get the title?
I did a PhD at University of Auckland in film and media studies. So I did it on the work of John O'Shea, the great filmmaker, New Zealand filmmaker of the 50s and 60s, the pioneer, if you like, of New Zealand filmmaking.
I know we're not here to talk about John O'Shea, but what happened to John O'Shea? Where is he now? What's happened?
Oh, he died. He died in his, I think he was about 82 when he died. That was about 10 years ago.
He was pioneering, wonderful, wasn't he?
Oh, he was.
Yeah.
He was, yeah. This was long before there were any film commissions or grants or anything like that. He kept mortgaging his house so he could keep making films because he was passionate about New Zealand films.
It was a passion, and some of his bigger titles were...
Runaway was
with
probably
Howard Morrison and,
his most famous one, and Don't Let It Get You was a musical.
Well, John, that was a real digression on my part there. We weren't here to talk about John O'Shea, but we are here to talk about that great subject about writing books. And look, I'd give if I had $1 for every baby boomer, and you hear it, don't you? They
Always.
say, gosh, I should write a book about it. I should write a book about it.
Yeah, why don't you write a book about it? Yeah.
Why don't you write a book about it? And of course, out of 100 people that say, or 10,000 people that say I'm going to write a book about it, only 1 or 2 do. Now, is it because it's too hard, or is it a discipline you can learn? John, you have a book. You've got a book there that how to write a book, and that's why I thought, wouldn't it be great for you to come on the program and tell us writing your first novel? And you've actually done that, haven't you, John?
I've done that. I've written a novel, and then I just...
Have a look at your first novel.
Here's the first novel. You want to hang on to it and wave it around?
So, really, anyone that wants to go through the process of writing a book, they should talk to you, shouldn't they?
Well, they should do, or they have a look at writing your first novel, because having finished the novel, I thought, well, I learnt a lot about writing a novel, and I guess it's the teacher in me, and I thought, I'll write a book
on writing your first novel.
On how to write your first novel, where you would start.
Exactly. Well, why don't we start at the start? Where do you start to write your first novel?
Well, you probably, I think, you draw on your own experiences, and baby boomers have got heaps of experiences. Yeah. I've travelled pretty widely, and I drew on that, but that doesn't matter. If you've grown up all your life in a small town, lots of things have happened. There's tension at work, there's divorces, there's births, maybe there was a fire down the road, maybe there was a crime committed or something like that. You could take that, the sort of thing that you talked about at dinner parties or was in the local newspaper, and build on that for your novel, for your idea.
Now, out of those 10,000 people that we talked about that have said, I'm going to write a book, and they get that far, they write about that little occasion, but then they stop. What's making them stop at that point?
I think lack of confidence. They think, oh, I don't think this is very good.
Yes, they say that, won't they?
And they'll say, well, I'm not sure where to go from here. Now, there's lots of things that can help you. There's, like my book, Writing Your First Novel. There are writers' groups. You can do it by distance, or you can attend local polytechnics or universities or whatever. You don't have to be a great intellectual. Just go along to these writing groups and read what you've written and listen to what other people have written. There are writers that will check your work for you and give you some feedback as well. There's lots of resources there. But the main thing is, if you think you can do it, and the more you write, the more you begin to feel, I'm taking this over. This is now my book. Then you'll start to feel, hey, I'm creating something here. I'm creating characters that I built out of nothing. Now, in my case, I based some of the characters on people that I knew.
On your book, yeah.
In my novel, Uncommon Enemy, yeah. People that I didn't like particularly, I even used them as a sort of model for the villain. They'd never recognise it, because once the book goes...
I think I recognised myself.
Did you see yourself in that?
No, no.
Yeah. So that's how you build up your characters. You base them on people that you know and incidents.
This is another thing that goes wrong, I feel, is it's not the finished book that first time you write something.
No.
They think that it has to be perfect before you know, the first page has got to be perfect.
No, not at all.
It doesn't.
No.
It's just an idea you put down.
Just get it down there, yeah.
Because there's a lot of work to do yet, isn't there,
yes.
on your first novel?
Oh, yeah.
So,
I remember I wrote 8 endings to my novel before I was happy with it.
8 different
And
endings.
it mulled away in my back of my mind. I'd write it, I'd get up the next morning and think, who wrote that? Well, I'm not having that. And I wrote another one, and my wife was a very good critic. She would look at it and say, that doesn't work. That was okay. There's nobody pressuring you. Do it in weekends or wet evenings or wet weekends or something. It's more fun than mowing the lawn anyway.
Say you did a half an hour to an hour on your novel every day, and it just grows, doesn't it? Now,
That's
you've
right.
got to get people to that stage.
Yes.
What do you recommend getting?
Yeah, I would think about
the
half an hour
discipline,
to an
the
hour.
discipline,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then you go back and you look at it,
Yeah.
and you don't just accept it because you wrote it. You say, no, this doesn't really work. I'll make some changes here and some changes there. And that's part of your half hour or an hour. So gradually you're refining it as you go along, because your first ideas aren't always your most brilliant ideas. And that doesn't just apply to the fact that it's your first novel. Most writers, I would say all writers, go through that process of changing and modifying and so on and so forth. So there's nothing new in that.
Now, how many pages do you think is a decent book? About 384, 517?
No, I
What's-
think about, how many of mine? I think it's about 200 and something, is it?
200 pages? What's the sort of, what are
Oh,
we
you're looking at about 90,000, 60 to 90,000 words.
Okay.
And it sounds like a huge amount, but it isn't. Once you start writing, you just forget about the word count and get on with it.
Right, you lean back, it's finished. Wow, you've rewritten it about 12 times. It's,
Yes.
You've gone over it and over again. What do you do then? I mean, you print it off the computer, of course.
Well, you print it off, and then you've got several choices now with modern technology. I've had it first printed as a book with my publisher, Polygraphia, who's a West Auckland publisher, and then we converted it into an e-book. Now, he was able to do that relatively easily. And then through Polygraphia, we had the book put onto Kobo, K-O-B-O, which is like book spelt round the wrong way. And that's up there for people to download. And the beauty of that is that your book is now available all over the world, from Alaska to Stewart Island. Anybody can read it, and
Download your book.
you don't need to
On your Kindle.
on your Kindle
On your
or on
Kindle,
your
on your-
iPhone or
yeah.
all these other things, on the Kindle, and you can just download it. And it's much cheaper than the printed version, so people can download it. People from all over the world can download it, and that's enormously satisfying. And even if you sell 100 a year at $6 each, that's $600. And the satisfaction is that people around the world are reading your book.
Yes.
And that's great. And in the old days, you'd wind up having to take a risk and maybe print 500. You sell 40, and you've got a basement full of books and thinking, what on earth do I do with them? I can't bear to throw them out. Nowadays, just have them converted, put them up on Kobo or Amazon, and there it is.
Now, John, the next stage, and that happened to you, we'll talk about your book in just a moment, but I want to hear that reaction. You actually got an email from someone or a letter from someone. They said they'd read the book, and there was the ultimate, the
little
result.
old lady story.
Yeah, yes,
wonderful
tell me about
story. I took the book round, because you do a bit of promotion, and I read it to various groups, and the U3A, the University of the Third Age group, and this lady bought this book, and bought the book, my novel, and she wrote me a letter, because there's still nice people in the world that write you letters. Opened up the letter, and she said how much she'd enjoyed the book. And she said, I can honestly say, as an 87-year-old woman, it's a long time since a man kept me up till 2 o'clock in the morning. And that was better than all the critics that I'd had. I had some quite good criticism, but yeah.
So, no, that is wonderful, because, right from that very first line, and if we right from that very first line in your book, John, to the finishing of it, and of course the very first line is, the pair lay perfectly still. The Teutonic commands drifted up the valley, were coming closer. Right from the writing of that first line to the finishing of it, then that lady bought it, and she wrote you, and she said she enjoyed it.
Yes.
What a journey. So all us baby boomers can write a book.
Oh,
It's
yes.
not as hard as...
No, it's not.
Yes.
No.
And that's what you're on the program today for, John, to say to our baby boomers, you can do it. Because we've heard millions of them say, I'm going to write a book about that.
Or I wish I'd written a book about that.
Yes,
or
exactly.
And the love scene, I have to mention this to you, writing love and sex is quite tricky.
Especially if the wife's...
Well, I had to be careful because I didn't want Bess, my wife, saying to be reading the book and saying, "Who'd you do that with?"
Who did you do it with, John?
So that's quite tricky. But hey, you know, you get around that. Writing action is different from writing, say, descriptive passages. You use longer sentences for descriptive passages, short sentences for action.
I've pre-arranged this, haven't I, John? I twisted your arm. We're going to give 3 of your books away, but we're going to have, give us 60 seconds on why this is a wonderful book.
Well, it's basically the Nazis win World War II early on. That's why we've got a Luger over Rangitoto.
Now, great idea. The Nazis win World War II.
It's an alternative history.
Yeah,
there's been several, but it's never been set in New Zealand. So New Zealand is occupied
by the Nazis.
By the Nazis. And it's essentially a love story set in a time of occupation, because nobody wants a whole lot of fighting and yelling and all the rest of it. So there's this young woman who 2 men are in love with her. One of them joins the resistance, the other joins the new Nazi party, and they use their positions to try and discredit each other. It's set mostly in Auckland, some of it's set in Nazi Germany, but mostly around Auckland. The guerrilla headquarters is in Albany, because of Albany back in the 40s was, you know, very remote. And it has an ending that is not terribly happy. Hopefully people say to me, "Yeah, it could have happened that way. What happened next?" I say, "Well, what do you think?" Nobody guessed the ending. Everybody I talked to, I always said to them, "Did you figure out the ending?" "No, I had my suspicions, but I thought it could go the other way." And like I said to you earlier on, it took me 8 different
endings to get that ending.
And I talked to a lot of people who went through the war. And I remember an incident as a small boy, my grandmother telling me about the news of the death of my dad's oldest brother, and how the postmaster had come down the driveway, and my grandfather had gone to the door, and when he saw the postmaster, he just collapsed, because only the postmaster brought the death telegrams. And I used that in the book. I recreated that scene. And every time I read it aloud to people, I had a tingle, because although she told it to me many times, almost as if she needed to get this out all the time. That's what I'm talking about, about drawing on your own experiences.
All your own experiences.
All the experiences of other people that have been conveyed to you.
Now, where can you buy it? From all goods bookstores?
No, probably not. I've got it mostly.
Let's have a thing underneath. Where could we...
well, you could download it from Kobo, K-O-B-O, onto your Kindle.
So www.
Yes.
Kobo, K-O-B-O.
.com.
And you'll...
That's all.
And then type Uncommon
type in
Enemy.
Uncommon Enemy. Yeah.
Wow. And that would be about, what, $10, would it?
Yeah, about $10. Less than $10. About
less
$9.
than $10.
You'd pay about, I think the retail in the shops was about 28 or something, so that's a saving. And, yeah.
And you were really proud of it when you finished it, John?
Oh, it was enormously satisfying.
Yeah.
You just sit there with a novel in your hand.
There it is.
Much more fun than a PhD thesis, yeah.
So we need a question, John.
Okay, I've got one, Jared, a simple one. What's the name of my novel?
Excellent. Uncommon Enemy. That's all you have to write?
That's all you
Email
have to write.
Jared at The Beat Goes On, and 3 lucky viewers, Beat Goes Oners, will win a copy. John Reynolds.
Jared
Starting my new book tonight.
Good God.
It's all about John Reynolds.
And you'll be able to tell them the ending at the end of the night.
Thanks, John.